So the 14-inch laptop space has quickly become one of my favorite laptop categories to review. Ever since the Asus G14 hit the market in 2020, it proved that you don't need to buy a 15 or 17-inch laptop to get the most powerful laptop experience. Now, I know there's always been 14-inch laptops with some sort of NVIDIA MX card, or if you were lucky, a GTX 1650, but this pales in comparison to what you can get today. Now, I have a few requirements for this ultra-portable 14-inch category. They have to have good battery life, the GPU has to be an RTX 30 series or equivalent, and the laptop has to be under 4 pounds. With that being said, my top picks are the Acer Swift X, Asus G14, Razer Blade 14, and the MacBook Pro 14. The prices of these laptops range from 1,000 USD up to every kidney you have in your body. One small note, you'll see me show the MacBook Pro 16 in most of these shots, but I've reviewed the 14-inch model. I just had to send it back since I kept the 16 instead. Design is subjective, but if I had to choose, it would be a toss-up between the MacBook Pro and the Razer Blade 14. They feel the most rigid and durable with the least amount of flex, and sport the nicest design. The Acer Swift X feels the cheapest with the most amount of flex and least rigidity. And the Zephyrus somewhere in the middle. All of these laptops come with its own type of charging adapters. Apple's MagSafe connector is the most intuitive charging method. It snaps on easily, comes off easily so you don't knock your laptop off the table, and it can fast charge the MacBook Pro. Razer has its own proprietary connector, but it's not as unique. The Zephyrus G14 and the Swift X both use a barrel connector, but every single laptop here can be charged using USB Type-C. Now, these are all under 4 pounds, the lightest being the Swift X and the heaviest the Razer Blade 14. On paper, it's minor, but once you add the charging bricks to the equation, the Blade 14 starts to feel much heavier. It has a 230-watt charging brick, which is more than double the size of the MacBook Pro 14s and triple the size of the Swift X. As for ports, they all have a great selection, with each laptop having one or more USB Type-C port and an HDMI connection to hook up a display. The MacBook Pro is the only one with an SD card slot and 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports, but unlike the others, lacks a USB-A port. Acer Swift X has the least amount of ports, with the Zephyrus G14 having the most. Now, if all you care about is the best display, then you want the MacBook Pro 14. It has a taller 16:10 aspect ratio, but it uses mini LED technology, gets the brightest, has the highest color accuracy, and supports true HDR. It's the best laptop display I've laid my eyes upon. All the displays are color accurate enough for any sort of design work, but the Swift X is the only one without a high refresh display. It's 60 Hz, which is a bummer, but the price point reflects its omission. The Razer Blade and Zephyrus G14 are both 144 Hz and have QHD options, but the Blade 14 has a faster response time for gaming. All these laptops have a fingerprint scanner, except for the Razer Blade 14, it uses facial recognition. Yes, the MacBook Pro has a notch, but just like an iPhone, you'll learn to stop seeing it. Hopefully. But if having an amazing webcam is important, the MacBook Pro 14 wins by far with the best quality. The Zephyrus G14 loses because it doesn't even have one, which is pretty ridiculous in 2021, while the other two sit somewhere in the middle. Performance in all of these laptops are fantastic. Every Windows device is using an AMD processor, with the Razer Blade 14 having the unlocked 5900HX. The Swift uses AMD's lower powered U-series chip, but it still performs remarkably. The best way to put this is the Swift X is capable, but not the fastest, but it does everything decently. If your main goal is content creation, whether it be video production, design work, or development, none of these laptops will come close to the MacBook Pro 14. It's the new king in the creative world. But don't let the high scores fool you. The Blade 14 and Zephyrus G14 run beautifully. But if gaming is the main goal, the Razer Blade 14 comes out on top, since it can be spec'd with an RTX 3080 at 100 watts and can crush any game you throw at it. As for the MacBook Pro, forget about it. As powerful as the hardware has become, it's still not a gaming laptop, since most games are made available for Windows only. Sure, there's some games like World of Warcraft that run well, but you'll never play Call of Duty or Apex Legends. Battery life is the best on the Acer Swift X. It netted me the longest battery life out of the bunch if you're mostly using it for general productivity, but if you plan on working in more intense apps, the MacBook Pro 14 with M1 Pro is the best option. It sips the less power, and out of all these laptops, it does not need to be plugged in to get full performance. Now, when it comes to fan noise, there is no contest. The MacBook Pro 14 stays the quietest the longest, with the Acer Swift X following in a close second. Regardless of what you're doing, fan noise will generally stay at 43 decibels or lower with either of these laptops. But if you offer the Blade 14 or Zephyrus G14, these things can get loud. I'm talking like jet engine loud. Now, these are gaming laptops after all, and the chips inside of them do run quite hot. Speaking of hot, the MacBook Pro 14 runs the coolest, followed by the Swift X. Acer is conservative with the thermals, which means you'll lose out on a little performance for a cooler and quieter experience. The Razer Blade keeps temps around 80 degrees Celsius, whereas the G14 runs the hottest with temps hovering in the 90s. It definitely had the hottest keyboard deck to touch. Finally, upgradeability is non-existent with the MacBook Pro 14. What you buy is what you get until you decide to replace the laptop. The rest can have their storage upgraded, but the Acer Swift X has room for 2 drives instead of 1. You can only have up to 16 gigabytes of RAM in the Blade 14 or Swift X because it's soldered onto the motherboard. The Zephyrus G14 has 8 gigabytes soldered on, or 16 depending on your region, but the other slot is upgradable, bringing the total to 40 or 48 gigabytes. So here's what I think. If you are on a tighter budget, just get the Acer Swift X. It's priced very aggressively, and even though it's not the fastest out of the bunch, it's fast enough that it can pretty much handle any workload comfortably. But if all you care about is gaming, then the Razer Blade 14 is the one you should go for. It has the most powerful GPU options. It can handle all the latest titles comfortably on high settings. Just note you will be sacrificing battery life and paying a higher price tag. As for the Asus G14, I personally feel like it's the sweet spot. It usually retails for about $1,500, but I always see it on sale at Best Buy for about $1,350. It's perfect for 1080p gaming, and it's fast enough for most creative workloads. Plus, RAM can be upgraded and has amazing battery life. You just don't get a webcam. You probably have to use your phone. Finally, the MacBook Pro 14, it's the most expensive if you spec it out, but it has the best hardware design, speakers, thermals, camera, and even fan noise. This is the best option if you're a video creator, developer, or music producer, and don't care about gaming at all. Just note that I feel like you should aim for the M1 Pro, as the performance is still insane, and you get the best battery life compared to the M1 Max. So that's it. These are the best 14-inch laptops you can buy, and I hope this video helped. Links to all the laptops are in the description down below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.